All right, welcome back. Cold open question for you this week. If you were trapped in the afterlife like the Maitlands, where would it be and how would you spend your time? All right. And so, as we know, it's different for everybody. Not everybody's tied to their house. So, if you were trapped in the afterlife like the Maitlands, where would it be and how would you spend your time?
Okay. All right.
We'll answer that when we get back. Well, at the end of the show. Your local video store card.
A comic book in your back pocket.
Games with no tutorials.
Music you had to discover.
And drinking water straight from the hose.
These are the things us millennials remember fondly. We are the Jennings brothers.
Join us after the streetlights come on
as we race our bikes from the top of the hill
right down memory lane.
Exchange those quarters because this podcast takes tokens.
Welcome back to This Podcast Takes Tokens. We're summoning the spirit of 1988 with Tim Burton's iconic Beetlejuice. It's a hilarious horror romp featuring the ghost with the most, Beetlejuice himself. Get ready for the Maitlands, the Dietzes, and all the macabre fun that comes with it. From sandworms to... I don't know what that word is. Oh, seances.
There we go.
This film redefines what a comedy horror could be. So let's dive into the afterlife antics of everyone's favorite bioexorcist, Beetlejuice. It's showtime.
It's showtime.
Apologies. I had my intro written, and I told ChatGPT to just punch it up a little bit for me, see if it would give me something a little different. And then I smashed what they had and what I had together, and they added the little bit about get ready for the Maitlands, the Dietzes, and the whole macabre fun from sandworms to seances. And I didn't catch seances before.
Not really a word.
I ran through it really quick, so it threw me. Yeah, it's not a word you see every day.
We don't use it a lot. Yeah.
It looks like seances or something like that.
You know, Derek, I was just having a seance the other day, and
Yeah. So yeah, that threw me for a second.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, we're talking Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. No, nothing? Okay. Whew, we're lucky there. Well, I had a lot of fun going back and rewatching this.
Yeah,
how about you?
I did. I wondered if I would. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, to me, like, Tim Burton movies, I like them, most of them, but I kind of feel like Tim Burton is like the hot topic of the movie industry, almost. You know what I mean? So like, there's the retailer, the hot topic retailer that has I don't know, like pop goth and pop punk and all this edgy stuff and everything.
Yeah,
and like it's really cool. When you're in middle school or high school, you're like, oh man, this is really edgy and everything. And then as you get older, you're like, oh, it's hot topic. Like, you see it in the mall or something. But I don't know. Like, there's a few of his movies that kind of hit me that way. This is not one of them. This was really good. I was a little nervous to go back to it because I thought that maybe this would hit me that way, but not at all. Not at all. No.
Not at all.
Nope. Great movie.
This is almost an annual watch in our house. Our kids love this movie. So we rewatch this one quite often. I'd say probably every Halloween we rewatch it. We actually went and caught the Broadway play was touring through different cities last year, I think. And we went and caught it in Dallas. And that was really neat. It was different. Like, it wasn't the same exact story. It was kind of a version of the story that we see on the big screen. And I can't remember if they said that this is the original script or if this was an adaptation of the movie and what they wanted the sequel to be back in the day. I can't remember exactly. You can look it up.
Yeah.
I was told one point and I just didn't pay attention. But yeah, so we went and saw it. The play was really fun. They do a lot of like interaction kind of with the audience and stuff. And then, Beetlejuice, the sequel, which for a sequel, what a fantastic name that is. And it's going to pay off if they make a third one. But that one was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Me and my son went and saw it a couple weeks back. And we had a lot of fun with that one. I'm eager to watch it again whenever it comes home to kind of see if that holds true or if it was more of I was just excited to revisit in a new way this world or whatever. And then the second one kind of takes a little bit of like what was missing from the first one that was used in the play, if that makes sense. And they kind of utilize a lot of that type of those kind of those same plot points. But anyways, we're here for Beetlejuice the first. And this was a lot of fun. I remember the first time I saw this movie, I was, probably 9, that, 8 or 9.
How were we, like, when I watched this again, I'm like, this is a recurring theme with us, isn't it? How were we able to watch this? Because this came out in 88, so I was 1 year old when this was came. I wasn't 1 when I watched it, but I was probably 4 or 5 or something when I watched it.
Yeah.
How? How in the world? Because, like, I'm watching and I'm like, I'm not letting, like, I'd let my 17-year-old son watch it with me, but I'm not going to let my 8-year-old daughter watch this with me.
Well, my kids watch it.
There you go.
But to each their own. It was definitely one of those things where we're watching it and we're like, oh, yeah, I kind of forgot about that part. But we're just going to... It moves along fast enough that hopefully they don't catch on to too much. But everything turned out okay. But yeah, I think I was about... it had to have been probably a year after it came out because it was on home video. And I was over at a friend's house and we watched it. And I remember we sat and we watched this and we ate like cereal out of the box, but it was later at night. And I remember it was the kind of cereal that had like the marshmallows in it and we were just eating it dry, like candy. And that's about all I remember. So it had to have, and I know it had to have been like 89 because of where we were living at the time. And but yeah, I've seen this movie early and I've rewatched it several times and I've enjoyed it every time. So it sounded like you haven't watched it in a while. When was like probably the last time you watched it?
It's been a couple years. I mean, I remember, so I've seen it since I've in adulthood. And I think it was like maybe the second year of our marriage or something. We were walking through the store and I saw it like for $5 in a bargain bin. I'm like, I'm going to pick that up. So I've, and I think I watched it then and then I hadn't watched it again since then. So it had been quite it was to the point where there wasn't, like, the big plot points I remember, but a lot of the things that are happening, kind of the little side things or whatever, I'd forgotten about. So it wasn't, like, completely brand new to me. But there was enough surprises that it was, it was kind of fun to have those when I'm watching through it again. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's definitely, I feel like that's the case with a lot of these movies that we've seen like so many times. Like every time if you really sit down and rewatch it and not just put it on and scroll through your phone or play a game or whatever, you tend to like see things that you maybe hadn't seen before or maybe hadn't appreciated, or you see it in like a slightly different way. There's just little things that like.
Well, I enjoyed the beginning and you've got the aerial view of the town, and then it's just super seamless. It just transitions into that model that Adam had made, and it I don't know, that was really neat.
Well, I think you start out and you're overviewing the city, and you don't realize it's the model until like a certain point, and then you're like, oh, that's kind of like a model. And then it goes into the house, and if I remember correctly, it goes into the window, and then suddenly you're in the house. Yep. So then it kind of makes that transition from model to home about the time you're thinking, oh, this is like a model, and then suddenly it's like, oh no, this is like is like real life. Which he spent a lot of time on that model. That was a very accurate model. That looked
good. Like I've wanted to, if I ever have the time, I thought it'd be fun to do like model making like that. Because I've dabbled in a little bit of that when I had a friend group of mine that we've all kind of like, moved apart now. Everybody's moved out of town or gotten married, and it's kind of harder to get back, to get together. But we used to do every Saturday night, we would do board game nights. And I had board games. I mean, people would bring different board games over, and but I had several games that like the figures were just gray plastic, but they were made to where you could paint them. So I had like painted all. I've still got them in the closet. I painted them all up. I put like fake grass on the base of them and everything, and it was a lot of fun doing that. And I'm like, oh my gosh! So I'm watching this. I'm like, man, it'd be a lot of fun to get back into like actually doing model making with, the buildings and stuff like that. Just look pretty cool.
Yeah. I know I used to do a lot of, when I was younger, I did a lot of, I spent a couple years, got really into like model cars, and I would put together model cars and paint them and all that stuff. And that was a lot of fun. I got one, the last one I got, which I kind of stopped doing it in like high school, and then didn't get into it for a very long time. And then about the time we had our daughter, I found a model kit for like the full, like, I don't know, they have different levels to them. It was like one of like the top level, like complicated ones.
Not the snap type.
Where it's got like, yeah. Like you got to like break out each individual piece and like sand it down and like paint them all and then glue them all together, and, very tedious, and the ones that I really like doing. And it was for the time machine from Back to the Future. And it had like a chromed top, the outside of the car that went over the top, the shell or whatever. And I got about maybe a quarter of the way into it. And then just like, you got kids, you get busy and you don't come back to things and so on and so forth. And I still have it. It's in a box. It's all boxed up. It's got all the parts to it. It's still in its like original little box, quarter of the way done with all the paints and everything. And it's sitting in my closet. And I'm like, that's something I'll get back to one day. And we'll see. I don't know if that'll happen or not. I mean, maybe one day. Right? Like one day. That's what we keep saying. One day.
One day when the kids are having families of their own and don't have any other major responsibilities.
Man. The responsibilities, man. It makes it to where you can just watch a movie about once a week.
It does. Yeah. Can't wish our lives away though. That's no.
I wouldn't trade it for anything. I would not trade it for sitting around and
absolutely not
doing models and playing video games endlessly. That would not be as fulfilling.
It's well
for sure.
worth the hecticness.
Yes. So this movie, it taps into like the macabre and Halloween, spirit of Halloween. So like for us, it's kind of like it's a Halloween movie. It's something we watch every year around this time. Is there a movie that you guys watch for like Halloween every year?
No, not for Halloween. I mean, we've got Christmas movies that we each of us like to watch, but no, I don't know. I can't really think of anything specifically off the top of my head. I used to watch Night of the Living Dead every Halloween, but
the original?
Yeah, but I haven't done that.
Oh,
in years.
Okay. I don't think I've ever seen the original.
It's worth watching.
Yeah. I did enjoy that. They did a remake Dawn of the Dead back in like
That was a really good
2002 or
remake.
something like that.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
very
I
good.
enjoyed that
Yep.
for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyways, this lots of funny gags in this movie, great lines, a good blend of like humor and horror.
Yeah.
And not really something we had seen a tremendous amount of up to this point. I feel like the 80s was this period of like experimentation with filmmaking, and they started making a lot of like these kind of like crossover films, and then we ended up with like these slash films, like it's a horror slash comedy, or it's a romance slash comedy, or whatever. And the comedy seemed to get mixed in with a lot of action comedy, like everything was a comedy, or it doesn't really slash as well with some others. You're not going to have a romantic horror movie.
I would watch that.
That might be a little interesting. But yeah, these like horror comedies, I feel like we didn't really have a whole lot of before this. I mean, I guess you kind of had like Rocky Horror Picture Show, maybe was the big one before this. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head. I'm sure somebody will correct me. But yeah, that's so a lot of parts of this were really fun. I think so. The question I'm dancing around is, what was probably like your favorite line or scene or whatever? What was the funniest part for you?
So my favorite scene, there's two of them, and it's honestly both because of the music, but the dinner party scene where Banana Boat starts playing, or they start singing Banana Boat, and they're dancing, and like they're being possessed, and they don't, they're like, what is going on? And I don't know, that is so funny. And really, like, Catherine O'Hara just does a tremendous job in this movie, and I always like seeing her and stuff. And she just sells that. Like, I don't know. And then I don't know. It always makes me laugh from the ridiculousness of it. But when they get to the line, right banana, and they all like turn around, they start shaking their butts, and it's just, and then Lydia's over there in the corner, like kind of smiling, like, and then the hands pop up, the shrimp, and they think that they're, Adam and Barbara, like they're upstairs in the attic, and they're like, okay, any minute now they're going to be running out of here screaming. And then they come to find out, like, now they're intrigued, they can make money off this now. So that's funny. And then I really like the very last scene when Lydia comes home and she's telling Adam and Barbara about her tests and everything, and then she's like, can I do it? And I'm like, all right. So they like turn on, I can't remember whatever that song, I don't remember the name of the song, but shake, 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 senora. And she's like levitating in the air, and the football team's behind her, and I don't know. It's just a classic just shot of that. And I don't know, I like that quite a bit. Those are probably my two.
Jump on the Line.
What's that?
The song is Jump on the Line.
That's it. Yep.
And did you know that every bit of music from this movie was all Harry Belafonte?
No, I didn't realize that. I guess it is. Yeah,
every bit of the music except for the theme, the
score,
the beginning theme. That's that's Danny Elfman. Okay. But other than what Danny Elfman scored, it's all the music used was Harry Belafonte, which I thought was kind of funny. That and it was what Adam was playing whenever he was in the very first scene. He's putting the model together and everything, and he's got music kind of going low key in the background. It's Harry Belafonte. I just thought that was funny. It was like, I guess that was like his favorite record or something. And so
Tim Burton's favorite record, or Adam's favorite record?
Or no, like the character
oh, okay.
Adam's favorite record. Yeah. So it kind of like, it was like its own little character in the movie, the Harry Belafonte, which I should have done a little research on that and could maybe have a little more information. I'll have to remember next time. I'll look up more information on things like that. That's what I need to do more, is do a little digging, like a little internet research on some of these little like idiosyncrasies within because we all know the common trivia stuff, but like that's something I'd be curious about, like why they used Harry Belafonte. But
sometimes I think
no.
that the directors just hears a song and they're like, oh, this will go, like, you look at Zach Braff.
This is the character.
And, we've talked about with Garden State. It's just like every song in that movie is just spot on, and I think this is the same way. It's just I can't envision any other song working as well as it does with that dinner party scene.
Yeah. Deo. Or Banana Boat, yeah. Which is like a song that's written from if the lyrics make sense to me this way. Like the song is written from the point of view of a slave worker on a banana farm.
Oh, I don't know. I never really listened to that deeply into it.
Yeah. I don't know if that has any meaning or anything to the movie, but that's just kind of like, hearing it so many times, because that's almost the unofficial theme song for the movie for Beetlejuice as a whole is a Banana Boat song, because it's also used in the play.
Oh, really?
They do it in the play as well, and they bring it back for the sequel as well. Like it's like a song that they're singing at a funeral, which was kind of odd choice, but that's, we see it in the trailer and everything, so I'm not spoiling anything for anybody, but yeah, it's used quite a lot.
What about you? What'd you?
So
is there any scenes that popped out for you?
For me, I'm going to go with 2 as well. I think the things that just always make me laugh is towards the beginning, whenever the Dietzes have moved in, they're settled, and the Maitlands are trying to scare them. They're figuring out how to be ghosts still, and they put the sheets on and start wandering through the house and moaning. Ooh. And and they're like standing in front of what's Catherine O'Hara's character's name again?
I can't remember.
Her the Mrs. Dietz, whatever. They're standing in front of her bed, and they're moaning and trying to get her attention, and Lydia's up, I guess, in the next room in bed, and she's just like, oh my God, I can't believe these two. This is ridiculous. And then she starts like pounding on the walls. You have kids in this house, keep it down or whatever. And then Catherine O'Hara just like sits up in bed, doesn't even open her eyes, and just like points the remote, turns off the TV, and then like passes right back out. That one always makes me laugh. I think that's just one of the greatest bits from the movie. And then the other one is probably one of my favorite, and it's highly inappropriate, but whenever they're dealing with Beetlejuice, and I think it's right after they dug him up and they go back home, and then they come out of the model, and he's a little peeved about them leaving him behind, and he I don't remember if he kicks over the tree, I think he kicks over the tree, and the tree falls over, and he grabs himself, and he's just like honk honk, and he's like, hey, yeah, nice model or whatever. That one just kills me every time too. I think that's probably one of the funniest.
They get
parts.
an F-bomb in there, and that's
a couple.
Like, I'd forgotten about that. I was like, whoa, like this PG-13 movie. Yeah, it's a hard PG-13.
I think a PG-13 you can get one. You can get one out. I think you can get one out in a PG-13. But now they're like, I forget what I was watching. I was watching something and it came on like FX or we've been rewatching Mad Men, and they drop swear words every so often, S's and F's, and but it's funny because I'm rewatching it on Amazon Prime, and on there they mute it.
Oh,
so they
that's weird.
They don't say it, like it just like it drops the audio for that word. I don't know why on Amazon Prime, because that's like streaming. Yeah. That's weird that they do it on there, but yeah, like, that was on AMC, like basic cable, but still like, but I think basic cable has some slightly different rules. Like I remember Breaking Bad, they had some language in there as well.
Was pretty hard.
Yeah.
And then Turner Classic Movies. I remember I got on a huge Turner Classic movie kick years ago, and I would just like look forward for weeks at what they were going to be having, you know, on the guide, and I'd record stuff like movies I hadn't, you know, watched before or heard stuff about. All that stuff was completely unedited. Like I remember watching Kramer versus Kramer, and there's like a nude scene in there, and it's on. It's on. Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm like, I don't know if like they're able to get away with it because it's a premium channel on, you know, on the satellite or what. I don't know, but
yeah, I think if it's like a HBO type of situation, then yeah, they can do whatever. But I thought with like, if it's part of the cable bundle, if it's not your local broadcast, but it's part of the cable bundle, like your local broadcast has even more stringent, like they can't utilize a lot of the language. And then I guess they call it basic cable, which is kind of a bit of a misnomer, I think. But the extended cable or whatever package, they have a little more leeway now. I know it's now. Like I know it wasn't that way until like I think the 90s. They changed some of the rules and they let them have a little more leeway. But then like the premium cable stuff, they can do whatever because you're paying for it. So you know what you're in for there. Yeah, those are like completely unedited. Only formatted for your screen or whatever. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, those are some of my favorites. Always funny, always enjoy him. I mean, you know, he's got like, I think I saw somewhere where they said like Beetlejuice is only on the film. The film only has like 19 minutes of like screen time or something like that.
At all. Yeah,
hardly in it at all, but steals the show with every scene that he's in. That's Michael Keaton though, man. He was, you know, started out as a stand-up comic. He kills it in this. This is probably like, as far as like his comedy stuff goes, this is probably like one of his top best performances. And then goes straight from this into Batman. What a hard pivot that must have been. I know that like they say that was a really hard sell back in the day, getting him to be Batman. But as we know, worked out well.
Yeah.
He is Batman. But Batman and Beetlejuice,
I know,
same guy.
right?
That's crazy to think of. And Adrian Toomes as well. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, I like I couldn't believe I had a hard time seeing Alec Baldwin. Like not, I mean, I know he's in this movie, but he does not look like Alec Baldwin to me. Like, you know, I'm like, that like Gina Davis. I'm like, of course that's Gina Davis. But Alec Baldwin, I'm like, this can't be the same guy. This can't be the same Alec Baldwin that I know. You know, I don't know. It's he's younger there, and I
agree. Like I look at, and then you know they did the sequel movie and everything like that, and even whenever they announced it, I was like, there's no way they're gonna have Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis back. They just they can't. They're not gonna look.
They won't look like they did.
There's no amount of makeup they could put on them that would make it look right. But yeah, because they've both aged, so they fine. They age well. Like no, you know, not shit on that or anything like that. But you know, people do get older. They do change. Their appearance does change over time, and like I think they were able to pull it off with Michael Keaton because of how much makeup was involved. That he can still kind of pull it off. Like it kind of works. I don't know for how much longer. But it would definitely not work for them.
Unless they had them be like, you know, when they were decomposing there in that seance scene, which
or they did something to their face and they got stuck that way and they couldn't get it off or whatever. But I can't think of any plot reason why they would do that, you know, to themselves anymore. But yeah, that's an interesting. You know, they can shapeshift, sort of like they can like augment the way they look, and then you just kind of like push it back to like whenever they came out and they ran into Lydia and they had like the exaggerated faces and everything, which again, like watching it as a kid, I thought was probably one of the coolest things whenever they just like morphed their faces and just like pulled their lips out and like made it like pointy, and you know, he stuck his hand through his mouth and came out the back of his head, and that was pretty cool, I thought. And then, but yeah, so then they come out and they run into Lydia and they just like kind of push themselves back together, and suddenly they're back to normal. I don't know if you've ever had much experience dealing with clay, but that's not how that works.
But it's a supernatural. Like,
I guess
how does it work that they're able to change everyone's voices to whatever his name was that was singing Banana Boat? You know, like I don't know.
Yeah,
but it's I'm sure in the handbook for the recently deceased, it tells them exactly.
That's true.
Do you remember they
true.
made? I don't know if it was the Blu-ray release of this or just a collector's edition DVD, but it was like it came in like a case that looked like the handbook for the recently deceased.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, I didn't have it, but I remember it. Yeah, that was pretty neat. I had it on VHS, but I don't think I ever got this on Blu-ray or DVD or anything. I never got it on disc. It's just it was always on. I didn't. There's no need to like. And then by the time, the kids rolled around, we're streaming everything, pretty much so. And things like this were just like, I'll just pull it up on streaming, quick. So yeah, it's kind of like Blu-ray and DVD just kind of fell in this weird little hole where it was like it had to have been either a brand new movie that I wanted to get or something that I watched enough that I wanted to get it again. And this was kind of one of those movies that like I didn't really start rewatching it with regularity until we had the kids, and we watched it with them, and then we started like the past, I don't know, say like 5 maybe 8 years we rewatched it maybe once a year with them, because this is like one of our Halloween movies. It's like this and like Ghostbusters and Gremlins we'll usually throw in there somewhere between like either with Halloween or Christmas.
See, to me, that's a Christmas movie. I mean, I get it. Like some people throw that in there as a Halloween movie. Like I get it, but like it takes place around. It takes place on like Christmas Eve. So, it's like,
it's a Christmas movie for sure.
But,
but it fits both, and then there's like that's like. There's so many movies now that fit that bill of like Christmas and Halloween that you almost need like a separate holiday between the two for it. Like I think Thanksgiving, that's like those are now Thanksgiving movies,
you're right?
Yeah, because they just fall right between the two of them. There's a lot of them. Like I enjoy those two. Those Christmas Halloween movies are some of my favorites as well. I can't think of There was another one I was trying to think of, but I couldn't think of it. And then Bruce likes to double dip, and he will watch Nightmare Before Christmas for both Halloween and Christmas.
Perfect. Like it is. It's both. That's one of those ones. That's
it is both. That's one you can't pin down to one or the other. It is both. It is firmly both, and somehow it pulls it off. Another Tim Burton film.
It is.
Just saying. I think it's really with Tim Burton. There's like a certain period. It's like his early stuff, like, the 80s and maybe even the early 90s stuff. Great. And then like late 90s, 2000s, it's a little, I don't know if he was just getting experimental or what, but it doesn't work for me. And then he seems to come back to almost his true self, or what made him him more recently, probably in the last 5 years, I'd say. And it's been like, okay, this is like the Tim Burton that we know and love, and this is what we want to see from him. And I don't know if he got all that experimentation out of the way or what. But,
I think that's me. That's like, so I like this movie. The Batman movies I like, but there's things about them that I don't like, and we can get into that whenever we record those episodes. And then Edward Scissorhands, great. That's another one we need to do. But and then I liked Nightmare Before Christmas. But then like the only one I really liked in the 2000s was Big Fish. I enjoyed it, but it was like
that's right. I forgot about that one.
Quite a departure from his. I mean, there was like weird in it, but it wasn't like it wasn't like this.
Alice in Wonderland or whatever they
Yeah,
did there.
like that.
Yeah.
I don't need that. And the Corpse Bride and all that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I can do without that.
I just don't like claymation. Period. And whenever he goes to it, I'm like, I'm not down with that. And I think that's my problem with Nightmare Before Christmas is it's that claymation stuff, and I'm like, I just don't like claymation. I don't know what it is about it. I just don't like it. I don't enjoy it. It takes me out of it. It just seems, I don't know how to describe it. It just doesn't work for me. I don't like it. But yeah, I guess to each his own. But yeah, I agree. Like, I forgot about Big Fish. That was a good one. I think, but I think what worked with that one is it had a really good like story to it. And I don't know if he wrote it or if it was written by somebody else and he directed it.
Yeah, I have to look into that.
Yeah, the story was what did it for that. And then his visuals just kind of like brought it to life, and he didn't go over the top with them, which is, again, I think it worked. And yeah, it wasn't really until like recently with, I guess, Wednesday's the only thing I can think of more recently, and the new Beetlejuice. That I've been like, yeah, okay.
I forgot he did Sleepy Hollow too. That was one I enjoyed.
Oh yeah, that was fine. I haven't watched that one since.
That's it. I'm like, did I like it back then? Because, we'll have to rewatch that one too. We keep the list continues to grow.
It does.
So I was looking. Back to Beetlejuice. They were the beginning of the movie before Adam and Barbara die. Spoiler alert. But they're talking with the what was she? She was like their interior decorator, but like her real estate agent or something.
I think she was just a real estate agent that was like a friend, like an acquaintance in town, because it's a small town, so everybody knows everybody.
There's like 5 houses in town. But she was saying that they were offering $260,000 for the property. So I did the math on it. I'm like, what would $260,000 in 1988 be comparable to today? So it'd be $691,000 for that property. I'm like, gosh darn, that's good.
That seems
money.
like underbidding too.
What'd you say?
I feel like it would be more today. More today. They had a lot of land out in the country, upstate New York.
It was beautiful. Connecticut. It was Connecticut.
Yeah,
beautiful house.
Oh yeah, even more.
I loved that house until they botched it with with all the modern stuff. Which I don't
know if that's modern. I don't know what that is. Was that modern for the time?
That was something awful. That was.
It was definitely yuppie.
Yeah,
80s.
That's it. And it was so funny that Catherine O'Hara's like, she thinks she's so artsy, and like her sculptures suck. And like even her agent he's like, you know how much money I've lost on these sculptures and everything. And that was, I don't know. It's little things like that in the movie that I think are funny. Like there's that scene when they're going into town and Adam goes into his shop. And that old guy's sitting there, and he's like, "Hey, you need a haircut?" And he's like, "No, not today." And he like keeps talking, and Adam goes in, and you hear the guy still outside, and he's still talking. And he comes back out, and the guy's still talking, and he's like, "All right, see you later." And he gets in the car, and they take off. And
which that was Maitland's Hardware, so that was his hardware store that he was running. Now, I can't imagine that, and I don't know, maybe it's the idyllic town thing, that he ran that hardware store and had that big nice house.
Maybe he built the house, I don't know.
And everything. Yeah, he built the house, maybe, I don't know. I imagine, I don't know what the backstory is with this character, but I imagine that he was a writer or something and made a decent, maybe an architect. And made a good living before, like in his 20s and 30s, and retired early, opened a hardware shop up in Connecticut in a little town, and then like this is just like his like, I'm going to like take it easy for the rest of my life. I worked hard, and have this nice little life with my wife. That's the way I like to imagine it.
Well, I mean,
because it was like his hardware.
It was, and and they are just like surprised. Like this is what makes me agree with your theory here, because in spite, whatever the word is, of dying, they are surprisingly okay with being dead. Like, they find themselves back at the house and they're like, oh, we must have died.
Well, this is what we were going to do anyways.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, when they're fine until somebody comes in and starts, changing their house around. Because I think they're like, they were even fine with other people living there until they found out that the house is going to get changed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, maybe they'll be nice or whatever. But I think, Gina Davis's sticking point seemed to be all the dust. She couldn't get rid of all the dust. And it seemed to be driving her nuts. Like he was like, we'll just, this will be like our retirement. We'll just spend the rest of our lives here or whatever. And she's like, yeah, but it's like dusty. You can't get rid of the dust.
Can't get rid of the dust. Yeah.
And she's just like constantly like dusting and trying to clean things. What is her name? Barbara.
Yep.
Rambling through that, and I'm trying to remember her name at the same time. Barbara.
Now, see, I can never remember their last names.
Harris
I can remember their first names, but I can't remember their last name.
Yeah, the Maitlands.
That's it.
Which is only referenced like a couple times. So it's like you gotta like pick it up. But which did you hear in the beginning, whenever the real estate agent is talking to them about selling the house, she's talking about who's coming to buy the house. It was the Dietzes that were putting in an offer originally. Yep. Like they were trying to buy it from the get-go. You think they planted that dog?
What's up with that? Like how they so the dog's weight keeps the car upright.
Perfectly
he steps
balanced.
off, the car falls. They fall 20 feet and they both die. Like I'm like
they just drowned.
What is this? Like you couldn't have had him. I don't know, something else. They have a head-on collision with something. I don't know. Like I'm just like,
right.
This just seems a little bit far-fetched. Like maybe they weren't buckled. I don't know. Maybe this is a cautionary tale of wearing your seatbelt or something. But
I think they were buckled, but they couldn't get unbuckled.
Okay.
And then the car fell upside down, and so now they're drowning. Like just like you can drown in an inch of water. Yeah, like we found out with Bruce Willis in Unbreakable.
Yeah.
He's
Yep.
They tried drowning him in that puddle.
Yeah.
But that's my theory, is that because I thought I had the same thought. Like this is ridiculous. Like this dog comes along and they swerve so aggressively to avoid the dog and go through the side of this thing, and which somehow tears up the floorboards from it too. And and then the way the car falls, though, I was like, it falls upside down, and the water's just deep enough that if they couldn't get out of their seatbelts because they're driving like an old... Well, I don't know if that was an old car for the time or if that was a new car for the time. I guess it was a relatively new car for the time. But, then they couldn't get their seatbelts unbuckled. Maybe that's the thing with Volvos. Do they have, like, seatbelt issues, maybe?
Yeah.
Like, just failed seatbelts all the time? I don't know. That was my theory with it, because I thought the same thing. I was like, this is ridiculous. How can they not... See, I seem to do that whenever we rewatch these movies. I watch them with a little more of a critique.
I know.
On
I know,
things.
and some of it, it's like, is this really warranted for me to critique it this much? But
just enjoy the movie.
You just, I guess you just got to take it for what it is.
But at the same time, you kind of need things to talk about. So but there's.
You go right ahead.
I was gonna say there was just like little things throughout the movie, like sprinkled throughout the movie, that like I really enjoyed, like little gags or like little things like Beetlejuice luring the fly over to his grave so he can have a snack.
Come here.
Like he eats the fly. We'll have a little lunch. And or whenever they're talking to the caseworker Juno. And like every time she goes to smoke, it starts coming out of her throat.
I didn't notice that until this time watching. I'm like, oh yeah.
I always enjoyed the. It was just like little things like that. It was just like it was
that. So I really liked the waiting room scenes because you kind of get to see how different people had died. And there's that guy that, like, presumably died because of a lit cigarette had, like, you know, burnt his house down or something.
Oh, yeah.
He's sitting there and he's like, "You want a cigarette?" And I'm like, no, I don't smoke. And he's like, I'm trying to cut back myself, you know? He's just this burnt skeleton.
Just charred.
And, yes. And then there's the dude with the shrunken head. That made me laugh. Because Gina Davis is just sitting there, and he is, like, just hovering over her, staring, and, you know, not blinking. Just,
with the big eyes.
It's so funny to see that. Oh, yeah. I thought that was great. And then, you know, Beetlejuice at the end, he sees the witch doctor's number is 4. And his is like, what, 17 million?
3 billion or something.
He's like, "Oh, it's Elvis," you know, and he flips it out. And then the guy just shrinks his head. And yeah, those scenes are great. And that guy that's flat, like he was flattened, like ran over or something. He's like, "We don't really have any mirrors around here, you know. How do I look?"
How do I look?
"Oh, you look pretty good." "Oh, really? Because I feel a little flat."
It's like I was hit by a bus. And then there's like the little door, the little slit in the door that just goes.
But
right
his legs
through.
catch
It's like made
like
just
some
for him.
papers or something, and he just keeps going.
There was like these like conveyor systems for like all the different characters. Like there was the one guy that hung himself, and he was just being
Drug
like
run by the noose.
he was on like the little like just like on the noose, just like going around the office, like dropping off papers and stuff. But yeah, I always enjoy that too. Or the girl that got sawed in half and her legs are on one side and her body's on the other, or her torso's on the other side. It's great little gags. Yeah, I want to spend more time in the afterlife with this movie. I want to explore that world so much more. And not to spoil it too much, but the sequel you get to explore it a little more, and that's kind of nice. So I enjoyed that. But even still, I'm like, I want to just spend like I want to spend like a whole movie just like not even with Beetlejuice, just in general, like in this little afterlife, like exploring like I really like little worlds like that where they have like these little sets of rules and it's very distinct. Like the hallways in this, they were all kind of like cattywampus and like, you know, nothing was right angled and everything was just kind of like askew, you know, to I guess the Tim Burton aesthetic, if you will. I just really enjoyed that. And then the sandworms, like whenever they go outside, suddenly they're like on Jupiter for whatever reason. Saturn. And that's where the sandworms on. So like for whatever reason, there's like this plane of existence, and then like if they go outside of their boundary, they're on
Saturn.
The moon on Saturn with these sandworms, and then if you know they get pulled back in, then suddenly they're back on to the right side of it or whatever. It's just weird little things like that where they're just like, it's just the way it is. There's no explanation for it, but you roll with it because it works.
See, that's one thing I really admire with this kind of storytelling, and it's something that it's one of the reasons that I like to, like, when I do read, I like to read horror or something you know, a little more fantastical, because I like things that are presented like that and not explained. I like the ambiguity of stuff because it leaves so much more to the imagination. You know, you're like, I don't need to know why they end up on Saturn. You know, I don't need to know why Saturn looks like a Salvador Dali painting. But that's how it is. And like, I don't think I want to know, because I feel like you would lose the mystique, the novelty of it, I guess, if it's like, oh, well, they come here because there's this time dimension loop that causes, you know, like, I don't need to know all that, you know. So,
yeah, I agree. That's it's just one of the things that works with this movie for sure. I don't know. I think I'm pretty good. I think I covered just about everything I wanted to cover. How about you?
Yeah, I think so. I'm like looking through my notes here and seeing, you know, the only thing that I I don't know if you can shed some light on this. Maybe they said it, but I could not figure out. So they're having that seance, and Adam and Barbara, they've got their wedding outfits laid out, and they come back, and then all of a sudden they start just decomposing, and I could not figure out, like, what is the plot point? Like, what's happening here?
Oh, yeah, so it was kind of unsaid, but, Otho read through the handbook, but didn't understand it. Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, you have to kind of be in the right or wrong state of mind, which is why, like, Lydia was able to read it and make sense of it. But he read through it, and he thought that he was just conjuring them, like, bringing them forward so that they could, like, interact with them in their world, but on their terms. And but what he was actually doing is he was exorcising them from the house.
Okay, because
they were going to go off and be like spirits in that one room. They opened the door.
And now that I'm thinking about it, that's what those people looked like in that room. So okay, that makes sense now.
But he didn't know that's what he was doing because he's a fool. Like, he doesn't really know anything. Like, his introduction was him falling through the window because he didn't want to go through the door because it was bad luck. It's just ridiculous character.
That guy, I don't know what his name is, but he always plays just those off the wall sort of character roles. I can't think of like a lot that I've seen him in, but when I've seen, like, Demolition Man, he was in Demolition Man, and he was just some very, like, flamboyant sort of helper for the mayor of the city or something, but he had the same mannerisms that he's got, in Beetlejuice. And,
he kind of always plays like a similar character. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah, I can't really think of much else that I've seen him in. That, now that you mention it, but this is kind of the only thing I can think of him for. I know he passed away like years ago, but.
For some reason, I was thinking, I'm probably absolutely wrong about this, but I'm thinking, was he in Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze? Was he in that?
Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze. When did that one come out?
I don't remember.
That was that around the same time? No, because the first Turtles was like 1990, wasn't it?
89 or 90.
Yeah, so it had to have been like a year after that or something.
I'm probably wrong.
I can't think
probably
of what
thinking
character
of somebody else entirely, but you know how your memory kind of
conflate these things,
places that person in the role.
No.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really remember him for much else other than like him and like his girlfriend or whatever. Like another one where I'm like, this is the only thing I think I've ever seen them in. I'm sure they've done plenty of other stuff, but I can't really think of anything else with them. I don't know. But, Beetlejuice. It was a lot of fun. I think, I only had one more, question. Why can't Beetlejuice say his own name? And what would happen if he did?
Right.
Would he just, like a dying star, would he just implode in on himself?
I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that I would have liked to see addressed, but we never do.
Well,
but it's one of those things. The rules aren't defined, and that's fine.
Right. Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, another kind of little qualm I had was the wedding scene at the end. He's trying to marry Lydia, and Lydia says Beetlejuice, and then he immediately puts his hand over her mouth. And then Barbara says Beetlejuice, and he zips her mouth. She unzips it, and she says Beetlejuice. And there's like a good 4 or 5 seconds, and then he puts that metal plate over her mouth. Yeah. Could she not just go Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice? Like,
nobody
real
did.
quick. Like, that's all you gotta do.
They were definitely like super emphasis on it.
Yeah.
But she had no problem with like home, home, home. Like they were
Yeah.
gone.
Oh,
quick.
yeah.
Which
yeah.
does that work for other things? Could she be like target, and then they're in the
Just
target?
get right
Like,
there. Yeah. Maybe that's in the handbook.
because that might be the best way to get around.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was kind of one that I was thinking about. Like, what if he says his own name, or can they go to other places?
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know that too.
Yeah.
But that is part of I guess what we like is that not everything's defined, and that's fine. Not everything's defined, and that's fine.
I don't want it defined. It would ruin it, I think. So.
All right. Well, before we head out, you want to tell them what we're doing next
week? We are going to be watching The Monster Squad. One of my favorite movies growing up from the 80s. It's kind of, we're kind of in the spooky season, like we talked about last week on the end of the episode. So we're going to do another sort of spooky, not really spooky, but kind of a monster. Well, it is a monster movie.
The kids' monster movie.
Yeah. Monster Squad.
I don't remember this movie that well. Like I think I'd seen it like back in the day, probably like you showed it to me or something. And I watched it at least once. I know I'm familiar enough with. I know it's a movie that exists. I kind of know what it's about. But this will be one step below a fresh watch for me.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to something kind of new.
It's been a while since I've watched. I mean, I own it. Of course, I own Beetlejuice too, but this one I've seen more than I have Beetlejuice. But yeah, it'll be good. So
All right.
we will, we'll be answering our cold open question here in just a few minutes. But until then, we've reached another checkpoint, my friends. Remember, sharing is caring. Leave us a review, a comment. They help a lot. We really appreciate it. And until next time, be kind and rewind.
Absolutely. We'll see y'all then.
This Podcast Takes Tokens is a Clay Street production.
All right. Well, we're back with our answer to the cold open question. It's not. I don't know if it's really cold anymore. Now it's more of a thawed open question, but yeah, here we go. So, if you were trapped in the afterlife, like the Maitlands, where would it be, and how would you spend your time?
Gosh, that's really tough. I guess they're not really able to like travel. I don't think go to Saturn. But goodness, I don't know what the answer to that would be. Some cozy cabin somewhere, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where that is. I've never really been to a very cozy cabin, but someplace that's quiet and that I can just kind of stretch out. And what was the second part of the question? Where would it be? And
where would it be, and how would you spend your time?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
125 years, you're locked
125 years. Yeah. I'm gonna if
At least the Maitlands were.
If I can manipulate things in the environment, I'm catching up on all these games that I've missed out on. So just give me some cozy place. It can be an attic in a house somewhere. It can be a nice cozy cabin. Just give me a cozy place with all the games I want to play. Yeah.
All right, that works. I'm gonna bend it a little bit, and I'm gonna pick a skyscraper in New York City, overlooking Central Park. Something nice and tall, like super tall, has residential buildings as well as like office space and retail at the bottom. That way I can go. I have a lot of place to explore vertically because there's no vertical limit. You just can't leave the building. So if it's a skyscraper, I got a lot of area to explore. Plus, I can go and catch these great views from every side and watch the city grow around me for 125 years. I think that'd be a lot of fun to spend your afterlife in. You know, if we're sticking to this construct here of 125 years, and you're locked into whatever particular building you pick, and so on and so forth. Whoever you're with at the time, or whatever. Hopefully, I don't go with too many with somebody I don't like. Hopefully, I'm with people that I love. And as much as I want them to live long and fulfilling lives, if I'm trapped with somebody, I hope it's somebody that I enjoy at least.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if instead of dying with his wife in the wheel at the wheel or in the passenger seat with him, he went down there to pick up that old guy that was rambling, and they just went over the edge together, and he's stuck with him in the afterlife. Just spends 125 years telling the same story.
He would definitely be using Beetlejuice then to exercise this guy out of there.
Yes. Yeah. Well, this week I got no comments. No comments came in none that I noticed, at least. Nothing came in to talk about. But so we're gonna wrap this one up kind of early. I mean, the show ran a little long, but overall it'll be early. And before we go, though, I want to remind everybody that if you love This Podcast Takes Tokens, you can get free stickers. That's right. Show your love for the podcast and be one of the first 50 to snag an exclusive sticker. Let me tell you how. Listen to the show. Tune in to any episode of the podcast on whatever platform you choose. Leave a review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, a written review. Screen grab, capture that written review, and send it to our email at thispodcasttakestokens@gmail.com, along with your mailing address, and we'll send you one sticker for each review that you claim, screenshot, and send to us. Absolutely free. You don't have to do anything but write a written review, a unique review, screen grab it, and send it to us. That's it. That's all it takes. We'll send you out one of those stickers. So if you want more than one sticker, write more than one review, and we'll send one out for each unique review that you leave for us. And this offer is valid through December 31st, 2024. That's the end of this year. So email us as soon as you post that review, so that you ensure that you are the one that gets credit, because there is only one sticker per unique review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if somebody claimed your review before you, I'm sorry, they got your sticker. So get to listening, reviewing, sticker collecting. And yes, collecting, because there are 5 unique designs, and we'll send you out one random one for each review that we get. In the meantime, be good to one another.
Be good.
And we'll see you all next week.
Right. We'll see you guys.